Welcome to the Poultry Keepers Podcast. In this episode, Rip Stalvey, Jeff Mattocks, and Carey Blackmon let you in on the secrets to designing a good coop. So let's get started.
The three things that's going to make or break chicken coops is space inside the coop itself, air exchange, and coop location. And by the end of tonight's show, you'll have an idea about how many minimum square feet per bird, how much opening areas you need for ventilation, how many square inches or square feet, and where to place a coop for drainage, shade, and predator control. So if you're ready, we are ready. So why don't we start with flock goals? And you've heard us talk about goals in the past, but these are also important when we're building a chicken coop. You need to determine what's the purpose of your flock. Are you just got them for egg layers, or for meat birds, or they're show birds? Is it a breeder coop? Is it a brooder coop? Or is it a grow out coop? All of that can change the coop just a little bit. You also need to take into consideration your geographic location. What are your average high and low temperatures? They're not the same for everybody. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all thing. What's your average rainfall? Now, here in Florida, we get a right good bit. Other folks I know out west don't get all that much rain, but we have problems here with the rain puddling and the birds getting in it, and it just makes a bit of a mess. And think about your prevailing wind directions. Is your coop in an urban area, suburban area, or a rural area? You got to think about potential neighbor conflicts from noise or odors if you're in a tight situation. And you want to be sure to check for any state and local regulations or ordinances before you start building.
Yes, because where I live in one area of town, you cannot have a chicken at all in the town limits. Like none, no poultry, like they're all forbidden. And I've seen people go to city council, uproar, and they tell them that they can move or they can get rid of their birds. They keep it simple for them. Go up the road 15 minutes and you can have to 6 hens in your neighborhood. I live right almost dab in the middle, but I'm not in anybody's city or town limits, and I can have whatever I want. And it's all within 15 minutes of each other.
It used to be that way here, that I could do whatever I wanted to do, but the county's now passed a regulation that on the property I have, I could have up to 10 hens, but no rooster, which didn't make me very happy. But that's life. Deal with it and go with the flow. Think about what kind of coop you want and the coop you need. Do you want an fully enclosed coop? We couldn't do that here in Florida just because it gets so blooming hot and humid here that in the South, those fully enclosed coops, they look nice, but man, they're rough on birds. Do you want something more of an open air construction, a movable tractor on pasture? Will you have an attached run to the coop? All of those factor into this. And I think once you meet the bird's basic requirement for floor space and ventilation, the appearance of the coop is really secondary because you can configure it most any way you want to within reason. But Jeff, let's talk a little bit about minimum indoor space and run space and all that kind of stuff. What's your thought?
The numbers I came up with over the years of doing this is the comfort of a hen or any, and now this depends on the size of the fowl, but let's say your average large fowl type bird, 4 square feet of indoor living space and at least 10 square feet of outdoor run area. And every time I push those numbers closer together, when the chicken math don't work and people have a few too many, it's just, I'm just waiting for a problem to show up. It's just a matter of time. People say, I've been doing it for years. Okay. Just wait your turn. But They got to have their space. I had lots of space when we had our flock of 25 over the years out back, and I saw all kinds of behavioral issues, right? And so they would segregate, they would pack hunt, they would pick on the weak bird. They got bored, right? They don't have enough space. They get bored and they look for an excuse to be in the deal.
Not like teenagers.
Living creatures weren't made to live in compact spaces.
No, Jeff, I know one thing, and y'all were talking about it in your show on poultry diseases and all that. But when you get birds packed into a particular space, that stresses the bird, and that causes probably death. Just in case the folks didn't get to see that show, what were some of the things what kind of stresses can you expect to see when you start crowding your bird?
Usually the first thing is pecking each other, right? Like they'll be pecking at each other's tails, at each other's back of their head, could be pecking at the saddle area. So I tend to see pecking first. Eventually, at some point, you start seeing like nesting box competition, which is not good because, look, for some strange reason, the average laying hen wants to lay her egg at 10 a.m. Look, I understand that varies. It'll vary with age. It'll vary with a lot of things. They paid grad students to sit and pay attention to when a hen lays her egg.
Yeah.
And the average, they have nothing else to do, right? They're
Right.
paying $100,000 for an education. They might as well sit there but the average hen wants to lay her egg at 10 a.m. Okay. Everything becomes a competition, whether it's feeder space, living space, brood or nesting space, whatever. Right. But I don't think people realize they don't necessarily pick up on those signs of stress in their chickens. And then if you're not looking or paying attention, you won't. But know that when the stress level goes up, their immune system goes down. They go hand in hand. So the more stress you got in your yard or in your coop or your whatever, right, the weaker the immune system is functioning.
It's always amazed me how little it can take to stress out a flock of chickens sometimes.
I don't know that everybody sees those signs of stress. I don't know that everybody picks up on or sees their symptoms of stress because they can display in a lot of different ways. If you don't have your bucket time, if you don't flip that bucket over and sit there and pay attention to them, behavioral differences on a daily basis, because you'll see behavioral patterns somewhat to each breed.
Yeah.
But when you see a change in those behavioral patterns, then, that's an early indicator of a sign of stress. Now, is it an illness? Is it crowding? Is it air quality? If you don't have enough space, you're not going to maintain the proper air quality, right? So how long till the respiratory disease shows up? If you don't have enough space, you have too much manure loading. You have too much bacteria buildup in the soil, and that depletes your air quality, but it also sets up for a not clean environment, right? The chicken is not going to help itself, but scratch the ground and look for something, right? And it's just too hard to keep it clean. Keep it clean to the level it should be clean. Unless you're like cleaning it out daily and you're like the perfect housekeeper, it's going to catch up to you at some point.
Yeah. Let's say we've got a coop, but we want to put a run on that coop. What's a good gauge, square foot wide per bird?
For that I'm going to say for an average like 6-pound bird, put you in the middle of the large fowl, lower end, that 10 square foot is where we want to be. And the bigger the bird, the bigger the space. All right. Yeah. So if you're working with some of the really big end of the large fowl, you're going to be wanting more like 12 to 14 square feet of space out there to keep that bird happy, not stressed. You're still not going to manage grass. You're still not going to keep things the way you want it to be. In a perfect world, you would have a centralized coop area for nesting and for roosting at night. That would be your 4 to 5 square foot. And ideally, if a person had 4 runs off of that with the right square footage, they could go in there and reseed that. They could go in there, they could lime it, they could reseed it, they could let something grow, and they could move every week to a new run space. And by the time they got back, they would have newly germinated something growing there. You gave the soil a rest where the good bacteria could catch up to the bad bacteria and get everything balanced out again in a somewhat clean environment. But multiple years, and I saw this firsthand in a larger farm in Texas, right? After 10 years of running poultry across the same field, he had to give it a rest. He could not get ahead of the pathogens, right? So he gave it a 5-year break of no chickens, right? And they just harvested the forage off of it and exported that because they had so much nutrient buildup. You have no way of exporting not only the nutrients coming out in the manure, but ever letting the bacteria in the soil rebalance themselves. And people don't think about that, right? And somehow you got to give it a chance to decompose, do what it needs to do, let the ground heal itself a little bit, and transfer of nutrients.
So that brings up a question that I have, Jeff. So let's say I'm curious if I've had too many chickens in one spot for too long. If I dig down an inch or two, grab some soil, stick it in a baggie, and use the lab sheet that y'all have on the Trail website, send it off to them. Can you look at the results and be like, oh man, you got too much, blah, blah, blah. You need to move your chickens for a while.
We do that all the time, actually. People will send in soil tested. We can tell exactly where there's been too much manure applied to the soil. As you start seeing the phosphorus levels, the potassium levels, the sodium levels, all those things are like going off the charts on the really high range. And we just got to give it a chance we got to give it a break.
So that's not something you can like put anything on to help or anything like that. Just going to have to give it a break.
Doing the liming between periodically 2-3 times a year helps. Right? It keeps things under control.
Okay.
But after about 10 years, depending on your birds per square foot kind of spacing, after about 10 years of being in the same location, nothing's going to grow there. I mean, you've burned it up with all the nitrogen and all the excess nutrients. Nothing's going to want to grow there except for some really ugly weeds. And so you got two choices. One, you can come in there and you can skim off the top 3 inches of soil and replace it with something. And that's like starting over.
Okay, then you got to tear all your fences up. You got to move your fences so you can get the equipment in there to do.
Yep.
I'm not doing that with a shovel.
And another thing that I've noticed, and I see this a lot, particularly around poultry coops where they let the birds out, but there is a tremendous buildup and compaction caused by manure. And if the birds are fed outside, spilled feed and all that stuff, and it's almost like concrete.
It can be, depending on your soil type.
Yeah.
You're going to see it worse in clay type soils than you will in like your sands in Florida. In Florida, you've got more time before it will become like that. It just depends on what your starting soil type is. But if you're on a dense clay, like we have up here, or even out Oklahoma way, some of that soil is pretty clay. Once it starts getting manure on it, getting moisture on it, and while you don't think about the pounds per square inch, right? A chicken's foot is not really that big, okay? And repeated in the same location. So if you're not moving your feeders and you're not moving your waters on a regular basis, you're going to have those areas of compaction, too much manure dropped in one spot, that sort of thing. But we set up our coops for our convenience, not for long-term health of the bird. Nobody really thinks about it. And people don't move their feeders in water shrink because they're hanging or they're put in a fashion that they're not easy to keep mobile.
It's very convenient to get into just by opening the gate.
Yeah. And just to tend to what you said about it getting hard, that's the reason I've joked a couple times about a rototiller, but I actually do that. I'll do that once a year. I'll go in with a rototiller I'll get all the birds out of the pen, put them in one that's fresh done, because I do keep an empty pen, and I'll till it up really good, lime it, till it, lime it, till it, lime it, throw some sand in it, till it. I'll do that a few times and then throw some peat moss on top of it before I put birds back in it. But when I first get it, there's been times that I've had to use a pick to initially break the dirt. My tiller it's little. The thing don't weigh 20 pounds, and it'll bounce and bounce, but dirt will be so hard that it won't go through it. But since I've started every summer tilling it and going through that process where I'll do it 3 times with lime and then put a layer of sand and till that in, and then I will put peat moss on it, I've noticed a big difference in the health of the birds, which I didn't have sick birds before, but they're a lot more perky or upbeat or whatever.
They've come up level. Yeah.
They're a lot less stressed. And that's just from making that one change to the dirt.
You're going to have less bumblefoot. You're going to have less foot issues in general. Yeah. But they're going to be happier on loose soil than they are hard compacted soil, just because they want to kick and scratch, and that's what they want to do. So
Ingrid Benson has a comment here and a question, or has a question really. This is a good time to talk about it. Does that apply to pastured birds too? The 10-year time frame she's talking about.
And that, though, the operation that I was talking about was pastured, but it was using the same 10-acre field, and it would run large coops across it 5 or 6 times in a year. Can eventually catch up, but it depends on the stocking density and how frequent the birds are on there, right? So that can apply to a pastured poultry operation or a movable poultry operation eventually, but it's rare to see that happen, right? Most people moving their birds around their yard or their fields or whatever only see the benefit of it, right? That was a unique situation, like I said, down in Texas, just north of Dallas, where they just continually beat on one field. It was convenient. They had all the infrastructure. It's where they wanted to be. And the guy was raising 80,000 birds a year on that 10 acres, right? So it's first
So it was
few
like
years,
broilers that were highly densely populated inside of a tractor.
Yeah. They still had good square footage. They had 1.5 square foot per bird, and they were moved daily. But still,
80,000 birds on 10 acres.
when you go across the same strip of land for 10 years, you get to a point where the soil can't take any more nutrients. It can't deal with one more bird dropping. And even in some of the people who keep them in cages on the ground, other poultry people that we work with, those birds that have just been in that one place for so long, nothing's going to grow there for a long time. Or it's going to be some really noxious weed that you can't manage.
Chris has got a good comment here. My ultimate plan is to have rotating runs and using the old run as a garden space each year.
That is an excellent idea. And in fact, earlier I was going to say people could figure out a way to put their flock where their garden space is for the winter. Right. But if they had their run where their garden was, putting the chickens out there to scratch through whatever's left of the previous year's crops in the garden,
They would get a lot off of that.
They would get a lot off of that, right? But it does wonderful things for the soil by aerating it. He's putting down the fresh manure and so on. And if you keep the feeder moving around, but you can either bring the garden to where the chickens were, or you can take the chickens to where the garden was. Either way works, right? If you can set it up that way. But
now,
Chris's idea is excellent.
Will the garden use some of the excess minerals that get added to the ground with the manure?
Oh, yeah. It'll use all of them. He'll have an excellent garden. So as soon as the chickens come off, you lime it to neutralize some of the acids from the manure aspect. If you're not going to garden it right away, put a cover crop on it. And so it can absorb all those excess nutrients, primarily the nitrogen from the chicken manure. Then the next spring or whenever you're ready, you till that under and you're going to have a fabulous garden. No doubt about it.
I had a friend. I'm sorry.
It's a good way to export nutrients, right? For everything you harvest, you take out of there, you eat or you sell or you whatever, and it goes to a different place. But
I had a friend that ran his chickens where the garden was over winter. And he said by doing that, he pretty soon noticed that he wasn't having near the problem with insect pest in his garden as he used to.
100%. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They probably dig, find them, and eat them. The only insects he has is new ones that found the garden after the chickens got out of it.
Yeah. They're scratching. They're looking for the larvae and anything. And a lot of those insects overwinter in the plant residue that's left behind from the garden. Right. Well, there is no plant residue. You put a bunch of chickens in there, there's no plant residue left in the spring.
Yeah, it's not going to last.
So they've got it totally torn up, tilled up, and composted while they're looking for all those bugs.
But the only thing better that you could do would be put some pigs in there.
If you ran a couple pigs right behind the chickens, they'd finish up whatever the chickens didn't. And
if you did that, you wouldn't even have to till it.
If you got the right pigs, they'd till her up for you.
Absolutely.
Now we're talking like homesteaders here, not poultry breeders, but that's all right. It can work together.
But if we get people to thinking about every possibility, it's better for the chicken. Because they're also self-correcting the negative that goes in the ground from the chickens by moving them and digging it up and repurposing.
We've lost a lot of the old ways. Like when my grandfather was a farmer, he used the pigs behind the cows, or he used the pigs to clean up the chicken coop. And he didn't have pigs all year long. He had them when he needed them. So you get your pigs in the spring when the cows went to pasture. Then you put the pigs in on the pen pack where the cows were, and they turn it into compost. Then in the fall, when the cows come back to the barn, you have a lot less to clean up, right? Your pigs are finished. So they go to the butcher shop in October, right? And then you get it all cleaned out and freshened up for the cows, and life is good. The animals on a farm all work together. They all have a purpose and a synergy that they work with each other. Mm-hmm. When we lost sight of that, where a farmer only raises chickens or only raises pigs or only raises beef, we've really lost our way. And our environment on our piece of land doesn't want to deal with only one animal's destruction and manure. It really wants to deal with multiple species. And that's where I think a lot of the homesteaders really have a great opportunity to make that happen. Pig. Not everybody eats pig, and I feel sorry for them somewhat, but I'm happy because it keeps the pig price down for me.
That's right.
Yeah. More for me.
Okay. We talked about space. Let's talk about doors, floors, hardware, and cleaning efficiency. That seems to be an afterthought when a lot of folks build a coop. They don't take into consideration, is it going to be easy to care for? And I know, Jeff, this has been a year or so ago, you posted a video of our friend out in Texas.
Odessa, Texas. Carol Wilson. And I had suggested to her, right? So you lay down a billboard tarp on the bottom, perfectly clean floor. But then if you lay down another heavy vinyl billboard tarp on top of that, and then put your bedding on that. So when you're ready to clean, she has a flap door on the end of the hen house. She can lift that up and she can pull all the bedding out at one time.
That video was slick. She just picked it up and took off with it, and it was clean as a whistle.
Yeah.
Just that fast.
Yeah. And I stole that idea from the folks down in Florida, Pastured Life Farm, because their brooder is set up the same way. So they got the vinyl tarp down, then they got one on top of it, and then he's got a winch on the back of the brooder. So when he transports the birds to the field on his way back, he stands back there with a hand winch, and he can unload his brooder manure and bedding in the field So he's got his youngest son driving the tractor in first gear just above idle speed. And he stands back there and he cranks it out where he wants it in his field. And so the cleanup is 99% complete before he gets back and sets it up for the next brooder, next set of chickens. So
I think it's just looking at things with a critical eye about how can you improve the process. And I know, and I'm guilty of not doing that like I should sometimes. And I'm pretty sure everybody else has had a run-in with that. Coop construction, coop height. Jeff, what's your thoughts? I know people down here, I've seen coop 24 inches high, 4 foot high, 3 foot high, 8 foot high.
You know what? If it's a coop, if I'm building the coop, it would be nothing less than 7 or 8 foot high, because depending on the weight of my bird or the breed, I want that roost bar at least 3 feet off the ground. Okay. Even if I have to build tiers for a really heavy breed to get up there, I may put one at 1 foot, 2 foot, etc., as a ladder for them to get up there. But I want them up a good 3 feet off the ground, 3 to 4. And lighter breeds want to be higher, especially if you got cold, wet time of year, kind of what you're having in there now. You're a little cooler than usual. But if I can get a bird's feet off of cold, wet ground on a really good roost, they're going to be a whole lot healthier,
And we're going to get into roost a lot more in detail on the next show. But it's more than just sticking a pole in there for them to roost on, for them to be happy and healthy.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see, Don had a comment. Wanted to know if I could repost that video link in the group again. Don, let me see if I can find it. And if I can, I'll certainly do that for you. And got a comment here that said, I have seen a coop someone built that had a cutout at the bottom of the wall that you can remove and push the bedding right out with a broom or shovel. I know they used to do that on a lot of old poultry coops. Some of them had dropping boards under the roost pan, and they could scrape all that out and just shove it right out the clean out hole there.
I built a brooder that's 4 foot tall, 8 foot wide. It's got two sections. So each section's 4 foot by, it varies from 14 inches to 18 inches tall, because I also raised quail and turkeys. I needed a little more room. But the way I did it is the lip that hold my bedding in, I can pull it out. It just sits in a little wood channel. I can pull that piece out, and I found a hoe. I want to say it's 24 inches, 30 inches, something like that, which is perfect sized. I just reach in there, do like this, rake them out. They go into my gorilla cart, and it's clean. Whole lot easier than cleaning one that you have to dig the stuff out of.
Yeah, work smarter, not harder.
That's right.
Yep.
Absolutely. Let's see. We had another question or comment here, and I don't see it now. I'm still trying to get back into the groove of how to run this thing, y'all. I'm sorry I'm fumbling through this.
No, you're doing good.
What about pop doors or doors for the chicken so you don't have to open up the whole coop front?
I don't personally have any firsthand experience with them. There's a bunch of automatic, like electric or battery-driven doors out there. Most of what I hear is good feedback. I would personally want one that, so some run dusk to dawn, right? So based on the light outside, they activate on their own. I don't know. I think personally I would want one on a timer so I can set the time that the door opens and closes. Now it needs to be, and that's for a delayed start in the morning. Okay. Pretty much you don't want the door to close until 30 to 45 minutes after dark, at least 30 minutes after true dark, about 1 hour after sunset. So all the birds get back in, because you always got the straggler. But it is a good security. It's a good security setup to keep possible predators out. Yeah. I think they're a good idea, but
Sue says she has pop doors and she loves them. You said critters can't get in. The edge drops past the frame. So, yeah, pretty good security.
This brings us to the end of this episode. Come back next week and we'll finish our discussion of coop design secrets.